I hear what you're saying about the defensive side of thing and that being super impressive, but like for me, it was still the willingness to play his game on the other end of the ice, and mainly just because maybe it's just like a me thing, but like I just get really impressed when a guy comes in and on day one in game one they have that confidence, because like I think from my perspective in my debut, I just don't want to fuck things up. I just don't want
Exactly.
I don't want to make a mistake and have play go the other way and be like, well, fuck, I shouldn't have done that. Like I feel like I'd be really tentative. I'd be maybe a little bit hesitant to be aggressive, and he just wasn't, and he never fucked things up. So like it was really impressive to me that he had that sort of testicular fortitude and boldness on the offensive side of the ice in game one, and I think they need that.
Bruins Beat is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
And welcome into the Bruins Beat on CLNS Media. My name's Evan Marinofsky, and today we are joined by the great Pete Blackburn. Pete, what is up?
Not too much. It's been a while since I've been on this here shindig with you, but happy to be back.
Yeah, this shindig is right. I think last time you were on with me, God, was either during COVID or pre-COVID. You used to come on a fair amount. You used to be a frequent guest.
Felt like a co-host at some points.
You did. You basically became a co-host at points, and that was when I was still in college. So it's been a minute, but it's been nice to.
Now you're a grown ass man now.
I'm an adult like you. What a fun time. Only we could be in college forever.
Can hear the excitement in your voice.
Yeah, so much excitement on that. But it is, it's been a minute. And you are doing a lot. You've got What Chaos, which just dropped a national show with you and DJ Bean this week. It's a big week for you. The Marchand interview, and I know you guys have a lot of. DJ was telling me you guys have a lot coming down the line.
Yeah, we have a lot of guests. Like the Marchand thing to come out of the gate with Marchand was very cool to be able to drop that on the first episode, the interview with him. But the stuff that we've got coming in the next like month or so is gonna be on par, possibly above that. So it was a big old process getting ready for this show and stacking some content, but very happy that it's here, very happy that it's launched and has gone fairly smoothly. So I'm super excited about it.
And that's Monday through Thursday, right? You have a show you have to do every day, pretty much.
Monday through Thursday live. Obviously the interviews and like the pre-produced stuff won't be live, but the actual show with me and DJ in studio will be live, and then we'll throw to some of those segments and interviews.
Yeah, fun stuff. I know you guys traveled recently for one. I'm not going to say who it is because I think I know who it was, but very exciting stuff indeed. But you get to talk Bruins on this show. We had Mike Rinell on last week, and he was saying how like he missed just being able to talk bees. So this will be your area where you can vent on Bruins.
I'm ready.
Throughout the year. Not a lot to vent about right now. Bruins won on Thursday night. What was that? 4-2 was 3-2 was the final.
Yeah.
Another 1-goal game over Maple Leafs. There's something sweet about Toronto going down. I don't know what it is, but every time the Bruins play them and win, it's fun to watch Toronto suffer.
Yeah, I know exactly.
That'll never leave me.
I hate those guys. That's what it is. That's why it's so sweet to see them lose. I just can't stand them. It was also a great game. Like it's one thing to win, a shitty game. Sorry, can I say the word?
You can swear on this.
Okay,
yeah,
great. It's great. It's one thing to win a shitty game, and be like, okay, I'm glad we came out on the winning side there. But like when it's an incredible game, and that was one of the best games of the season for the Bruins. Maybe not from a performance standpoint, but an entertainment standpoint. To see them come out on the winning side there, it was I was very happy with last night's result.
Yeah, it was one of those things. I think that they continue to edge out these 1-goal games, right? Like that's sort of their thing.
Said it before the season. They are going to be the 3-2 Kings this year. Like 2-1, 3-2 Kings. They're not gonna smoke everybody like they did last year. but they are going to still be a good team, and they're going to be a good defensive team.
Yeah, and I think that's their thing. I think you tweeted it. They're going to be annoying. They're really annoying, and they're going to annoy people because the fall off is supposed to have come. Everyone's waiting for the Bruins to fall off. Last year and the year before. How many years did we sit here in 18-19, 19-20, 20-21 and say, the window's closed, it's over, And granted, I guess the Bergeron window has closed, but they're still competitive, 9-0-1. First thing from Thursday night's game, do you think Marchand's play was dirty?
No, I think that it was like it could have been a penalty, but I don't think it was a dirty play. I don't think that it was like a suspension by any means. It's anybody else does that, and I don't think it gets the attention that it did because it was Marchand. But I saw the stick kind of go through the legs and bring up the foot of Liljegren, but I didn't see that as like I'm going to take this guy down as a way to injure him or whatever. It was just kind of a hard play in the corner, and if anything, Liljegren impeded in Marchand's space. Marchand didn't change direction to make that happen. So
no,
just a hard play in the corner and an unfortunate result. I mean, I know that anytime you go in unfortunate result, people will say, yeah, that tends to happen a lot with Marchand, huh? But I do think in this case it was just an unfortunate result.
Yeah, I just didn't see it being dirty. I saw a lot of people on Twitter, mainly Leafs people, saying that it was dirty and that there was intent and he intent to injure and all this stuff. And I said, I don't see it. I don't. I will fully admit McAvoy's play was as dumb a play as I've ever seen him make
100%.
The other night. That was as stupid as it gets. I mean, you think about back to that, right? Like, they have this 1 minute long offensive zone sequence. McAvoy scored 3 minutes before. Mm-hmm. They're getting back in the game, and to just cheap shot Ekman Larsson like that is as stupid as it gets. I frankly, I thought it should have been more than 4. I was surprised it was only 4 games because it's a dumb play. And
so the reason I said that I thought it was gonna be 3-4, and the reason that I capped it at 4 was, number one, it was announced that it was the phone hearing and not in person.
Yes. Once that came out, that was clear.
Yeah, and then also the Rasmus Anderson suspension from a week ago. I thought that play was a little bit worse, just in terms of, he launched a little bit more than McAvoy did and hit the head of Patrick Laine. So he got 4 games, and so I was like, okay, it should end up being the same as that, or around the same as that. So 3-4 was my prediction, and ended up in that area, obviously.
Yeah. Congrats, you were right, Pete. You were right.
Got to take my victories where I can find them.
Exactly, and I respect that. We're a pro victory lap podcast. Before we get to Lohrei, because that's obviously the talk that's what everybody wants to talk about. Tyler Bertuzzi. I am not as up on the rest of the league as you are, as we could only dream to be. But Bertuzzi struggled, and it's interesting because I remember saying at the end of last year, everybody was clamoring for him to be re-signed, and he was a fit, right? He was a fit when he was here. There was no doubt, but there was always that injury history. His style of play can wear thin at times. And I remember saying, you don't want this to be like a Bolesky signing, right? Where guy kind of has a hot year or a hot segment of the year playing with good players, and suddenly you make him part of your core. Now again, I wanted them to re-sign him. I did. I thought he was a fit and all those things. But there was always that part of me that 70% of me wanted him, but there was that 30% that was talking pretty loud. And so far, that 30% seems to be right. Because, again, I know it's early. It's only a month into his time with the Leafs. But I think it's 2 goals. And, he was demoted to the 4th line on Thursday night. And just really not finding his fit. Which kind of continues to go back to, how bad of a move it was by his group to kind of bet on themselves going forward, hoping for a longer, bigger, long-term deal down the road. So it feels like the Bruins may have dodged a bullet there with him.
Yes and no. I think that a product of his struggles in the early going in Toronto might be because of the role that they're putting him in, and sort of how much pressure is on him. And maybe he's putting a lot of pressure on himself again, because there's this 1-year deal and he's heading back towards free agency and another contract. But and
it's only been a month.
Right, exactly.
It's only been a month.
New team, new teammates and stuff like that. But I think that a part of the reason why he was so good here last year was because he was essentially like a role player. He didn't have to do it all, and not that he has to do it all in Toronto, but like that's a big role there and a lot of pressure. And I think that from what I've seen from him in the early going, it really does seem like he's trying to do too much, and he's trying to kind of maybe overanalyze his game, force things too much. And when you look at a player like Tyler Bertuzzi, the simpler the better there, because he is a kind of meat and potatoes psychotic style hockey where the kind of like the less you think for him, the more success he's probably going to find in those dirty areas and just like driving and using that grit. So I think that he's going to find it at some point in Toronto, but it's probably going to be a little bit harder with the more the pressure kind of stacks and the more that he has to like examine his own performance.
I mean, think about the expectations that were put on him in the offseason of, right, like you're going to play with Matthews and Marner. He's going to be a 30-goal guy. He's going to, work his way into a huge long-term deal post this season. So, like, I agree with you. And I think Toronto's a hard market to play in to begin with, right? Like that's a hard market. There's a lot of pressure there. And you're right. I mean, he's just clearly not the right role. And a fourth line role, by the way, demoting him to the fourth line is not going to help him in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, but it might. Like, it might in a way that, like, it tells him, like, hey, just focus on, like, something. Just focus on, providing some of that snarl, because like right now he's not bringing anything. He's not really bringing anything that they wanted from him when they signed him, because they signed him for offense. He's not scoring. They signed him to be a tough guy and add a little bit more snarl to their lineup. He's not doing that either. I mean, like the situation with Marchand, I don't want to read in too much into that because I think Leafs fans are doing it enough, but like him laughing at Marchand while Marchand's chirping the bench right after the Liljegren incident is like, if you're not contributing on the ice, at least be like the guy that they hired you to be on the bench or like in the room. And so I think that Leafs fans would at least like to see something delivered from what they were hoping to get this offseason.
Yeah, I still think, though, putting him with better players at some point has to produce results. I don't know. I still think there's that
It tends to work that way.
You hope it does. You hope it does. Mason Lohrei, first game on Thursday night, looked real good. And, you even heard Jim Montgomery say on Friday, Ryan Mujanel, head coach down in Providence, said he looked better than he has in his time in Providence. It was his best game of the season against the Leafs. And, again, there were some hiccups in his own zone to begin with. There was, a couple battles with Matthews that he lost. But I just think the puck moving ability, his ability, like his stick in his own zone is so strong. I just think his reach and the way he's able to use it to his advantage, it's going to be real hard to send him down if he continues to play like this.
Yeah, it's a 1-game sample, and I haven't seen a ton of him over the past month or whatever. But like, I was mostly impressed by like his snap decision making, like and sort of the confidence that comes with that. He didn't seem all that jittered. Maybe in the first period with, like you said, some of the turnovers, but like his ability to activate, his ability to jump into the play, to go to the dirty areas, even in the offensive zone, like that's really impressive. And it didn't look like there was a lot of hesitation. It looked like he was playing with a lot of confidence, and he looked like an NHL player and not just like a fringe NHL player. He looked like a real impact difference maker on the blue line in his very first game. And especially as a defenseman, that is extremely impressive because you're not really protected back there, especially against a team like the Maple Leafs. This was no cupcake opponent. This was no, hey, we're gonna shelter you in your first game and make sure that you're in a position to succeed. This was him coming in and having to bridge the gap for the Bruins losing their best defenseman against one of the best teams in the league, and he did an incredible job holding his own.
Yeah, I want to read the stats about Lohrei because they were just outstanding last night. But first, quick word from our sponsor. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. Again, FanDuel.com/Boston. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. All right, so Lohrei last night. These stats I thought were incredibly impressive. Again, Bruins outchanced the Leafs 20-15 with him on the ice at 5-on-5. 0 high danger chances against. So this is what impresses me most. I know Mason Lohrei is a good offensive defenseman. I know he's a good puck mover. We know that he has no problem jumping up in the rush. But I'm not saying it's not impressive, because it is, right? Doing it in your first game, missing a lot of guys against the Leafs, prime time, even though it's on ESPN Plus, which you can debate whether that or not that's prime time. Did you hear Felger at all yesterday bitching about, complaining about?
Anytime I cannot listen to Felger about hockey, I choose to do that.
I was driving somewhere last night and I caught him talking about, needing passwords. It's like, dude, it's not that hard. Just isn't that hard to do.
Shut up, boomer.
Exactly. The old man yelling at clouds. Yeah. Once again. But anyways, I think it's the defensive game. Like, he settled in. He settled in throughout the game. That I mentioned it, a couple minutes ago. Just that good stick in the D zone. His coverages were generally good. And again, against one of the top offensive teams with a lot of offensive threats in the league, I think that's really impressive. And I don't think the reason he got sent down to Providence at the beginning of the year was because he wasn't offensive enough. It was because he needed work in his own zone, whether it be going back and retrieving pucks or, just assignments. At Ohio State, there was not a lot of structure there, and you're going to then play with arguably the most structured team in hockey. So I think the fact that again, it's one game, we'll see more of it, most likely on Saturday night, but the fact that that's there, it's pretty impressive. And yeah. I think to me, that was my biggest takeaway from.
Yeah, the fact that it's there on both ends, like you mentioned, and I hear what you're saying about the defensive side of thing and that being super impressive. But like for me, it was still the willingness to play his game on the other end of the ice, and mainly just because maybe it's just like a me thing, but like I just get really impressed when a guy comes in and on day one, in game one, they have that confidence. Because like I think from my perspective, in my debut, I just don't want to fuck things up. I just don't
exactly.
I don't want to make a mistake and have play go the other way and be like, well, fuck, I shouldn't have done that. Like I feel like I'd be really tentative. I'd be maybe a little bit hesitant to be aggressive, and he just wasn't, and he never fucked things up. So like it was really impressive to me that he had that sort of testicular fortitude and boldness on the offensive side of the ice in game one, and I think they need that.
They do. Balls to the wall is the word. It's interesting because like, I think if they don't blow the whistle dead on that play when he had the puck in front of the net,
the puck was loose the entire time. No reason to blow that dead. And he probably scores there.
Samsonov was turned the other way, like the other side of his pads were facing the puck, the other side of his legs, I should say. But that, like, to me, I agree with you. Like, I'm not saying it's not impressive. I'm just saying, like, for him to stay at the NHL level, I think being responsible in your own zone is going to be the biggest thing.
Right.
But I agree. I mean, and so this is kind of my next point. So it's interesting when you look at the Bruins. You've seen this in the NHL. It's a copycat league. The big thing now is you need big defensemen. That is the new thing. I know it doesn't bode well for the short kings, unfortunately. But it's interesting. Like, you look at sort of their heights on the blue line when everybody's healthy, right? Like, if Lohrei sticks with this team, Lohrei's 6'5", Carlos 6'5", Lindholm, I believe, is 6'4", McAvoy's 6'1", 6'2"-ish. Forbert, I think, is 6'4". that's 5 of 6D who are big. And McAvoy might not be the tallest guy, but he can freaking hit.
That's a thick boy.
That's a
Charlie
thick
McAvoy
boy.
is a thick boy. He's very solid.
He is solid. And I think, the fact that 5 of your 6D back there are that size and can cover that much ground and can do that, like, that's and again, it's nothing new. We know their defense is strong, but I think it adds another element that, I'm curious if Lohrei can stick Grzelcyk's out till end of November at the very least. Obviously, there's a lot of trade, not talk or rumors, but people are kind of like, oh, is it time for Grzelcyk to be traded? If they go into the playoffs this year with, Lohrei, McAvoy, Carlo Lindholm, and, Forbert and whomever. Shattenkirk was horrible on Thursday night, and I think I
don't want to say it, but I'm glad you did. I mean, he hasn't been very good for most of this season.
He hasn't been, and I appreciate that he's a veteran. I would trust him in some scenarios, but just on that second power play unit, like, I think they need, Lohrei to be as ready as soon as possible to run that power play unit, because Shattenkirk just doesn't do it for me, and some of the turnovers coming out of his own zone, I'm just not a fan of. So I wonder if they do need an extra defenseman back there. But again, I think it bodes well for them. 5 of 6 that are that big. I don't know. I think that helps them a lot when the playoffs come around.
You look at the Vegas Golden Knights and the size of their blue line last year. They had a huge blue line. So I think that
Tampa.
And that's not to say that every big defenseman is good, right?
Oh, yes, I want to make that very clear.
Seen a lot of big defensemen and a lot of big decors that you're like, okay, well,
can these guys
congratulations skate? On having big guys. They all stink. So like you got to find both, and I think that the Bruins are in really good shape with what they have, to be a sustainable playoff team, you need big guys on the back end. I think that's been shown time and time again. But they're not just big; they're big and dynamic, and that's a really encouraging thing. And that's part of the reason why I said they were going to be good this year, even though their forward group took such a hit. Like, their back end is still really impressive. And we haven't even mentioned the fact that they still have the best goaltending in the league by a pretty good margin. It has been unbelievable how much nothing has been lost in between the pipes this year after the incredible year they had.
And Swayman was outstanding. Swayman, I think, was
they saved them the game.
Once again, was the reason they won a game. Mm-hmm. And I've mentioned this on previous episodes, and I think it's really interesting. Last year, Ullmark got all the hard games, and Swayman, got most of the hard games, and Swayman got, some cupcakes along the way. And of course, there was a couple games that, like MSG, that he was really good in last year. But the way that the schedule's worked out this year, Swayman has faced the better teams for the most part. And I think that's what's most impressive. And I think that's what they wanted to see, was, can he take that step forward into being, is it more convincing with him against the good teams?
I mean, you got to put good teams in quotation marks, because the Bruins haven't exactly a juggernaut of a schedule to start the season. But yeah, I mean, I think that with the two goaltenders, there should be no intent to protect or, sort of like assign good and bad games to either one of them, because they are both very good, and you're going to need both of them down the stretch and potentially in the playoffs. It still drives me crazy that they didn't run a rotation in the playoffs last year, even in that first round, because it worked for them all year long. Just keep going. Keep going with what works.
This is why I don't. There's a lot of people I see on Twitter and saying, they got to trade Ullmark. You got to add the franchise number 1 center. And I want to hit a Buccigross tweet in a second of a potential trade proposal that I found just bananas. But I want to see them go into the playoffs again this year and try the tandem. Yeah. See what you have with this, because you can still run it back. You can still do it. Like, the way they're winning games right now, I mean, you can still do that in the playoffs. And I want to see them try to do Ullmark Swayman throughout the playoffs. And again, I was kind of baffled they didn't try that last year. Clearly they fucked up. we haven't talked about last year since. I don't think now is the perfect time to talk about it. But I want to mention this because I thought we mentioned this a little before we came on. John Buccigross was replying to Ryan Whitney on Twitter and gave up a interesting trade proposal. He said, Ryan, would you Seidel and Fogle for Omar, DeBrusk, Poitras, Lysell, and a 2026 first rounder? I'm saying no to that. If I mean, I'm not for that.
I'm a believer in that if you get like the best player in the trade, most of the time you win the trade, and like you're getting one of the best players in the world in Leon Draisaitl, but I don't think that makes you I don't think that puts you in a better position to win right now, if you're the Bruins, just because like you're getting the best player, but you're losing so much else. Like you're losing Ullmark in net, you're losing Poitras, who I think is the real fucking deal for the future. He may not be as good as Leon Draisaitl, not many people are, but like I still kind of want Poitras here, and I want to see what he develops into because he is way ahead of schedule than anybody predicted for him, and he's been so impressive every step of the way. So like, yeah, no, I'm okay with saying no to that deal, even if you're turning down getting Leon Draisaitl.
And you got to make your first round picks. I know that's right. You do have to deal them sometimes, but they've dealt enough of them. You need to make picks.
You need to make them, and you need to hit on them. That's the big problem.
That's the thing.
They stopped hitting on them, and they were like, "Okay, well, we just won't make them. We'll trade all of them.
Trade them."
Problem
and
solved.
some of them have worked, right? Like
right.
you dealt a first for Hampus Lindholm, and that when you make a first round pick, you pray for a Hampus Lindholm if you're drafting a defenseman, and so like I get that, but with the way with where they are at as a franchise, I do think. Make your picks. Get them right, but make your picks. Mm-hmm. And I think, like a lot of people talk about, and Poitras has sort of quelled this a bit. You need a franchise number one center. Well, you might have it with Matt Poitras. All signs point to him being...
He's at least a top six center. And,
my God,
to stumble into a top six center when your two top six centers walked away this offseason... Like, just talk about finding magic beans for that front office. Like
their deal with the Devil's got to be crazy.
It's got to be insane. I would love to see the webcam footage of the party that Cam Neely and Don Sweeney threw in training camp when they figured out that holy shit, this kid rocks. And turns out we do have a top six center that we got this offseason. So just like absolute found money in Matt Poitras this season so far. He's been awesome.
Awesome, and again, the production's been there. I know he didn't have the greatest game on Thursday night, but there were still some really strong shifts. I thought he brought his best at the end of the game, but even more importantly, just doing the little things. I mentioned this I mentioned on the show a few times. Like you've got to be able to do that, and that's what makes a top six center a top six center. The production mixed with doing the little things with. High compete and things like that, and he has all of those things.
Right. It's not like a trade-off where you're like, oh shit, this kid makes can make a really nice play a few times a game in the offensive zone, so worth keeping him in the lineup regardless of kind of what he lacks in the other end or like what he lacks with consistency. No, like he brings it on pretty much every shift, and he's bringing consistency, and he's playing a very smart game and very effective game, and that's just kind of what you need.
That's what you need. One last thing I want to hit on before we head out. Don Sweeney's gotten a lot of crap for drafting, rightfully so, over the past bunch of years. Again, rightfully so. I want to hit on with that. But right now, I mean, Beecher's contributing in a fourth line role. I think he was 7 for 7 on draws Thursday night. Austin Matthews, by the way, 0 for 11 on faceoffs on Thursday night. Not great. Did have a nice goal, though. I'll give him that. Did have a very nice goal. Lindholm could have been a little quicker to get his stick out there to try to
I don't know. That one-timer was nasty.
Yeah, I agree, but I don't know. A little more. By the way, Lindholm 0 points in 10 games so far. And not the points are everything for defenseman, but it's a little surprising that he doesn't even have like a secondary assist or something. Not ready to hit the panic button there yet, but. Again, Beecher contributing, Poitras contributing, Lohrei jumping in on Thursday night contributing. Have we been too tough on the Bruins prospect pool?
Probably not. Just
I'm going to agree with you. I think we were
probably
right
not.
on the whole time.
I think that this is what should be expected. So, like what we're seeing now, they get some young players coming up and making an impact. Like that should be expected. We should be seeing like every year, like one or two guys. Like, oh, this guy looks pretty promising, and it's been a while, man. And I'm not ready to say as soon as we see some seeds being planted, like, oh, maybe we were wrong the whole time. No, just more of this, please.
Exactly, and that's like again, we kind of all expected Lohrei, or we think his ceiling is top 4 left shot defenseman in the NHL, a good, effective one.
And
so,
you mentioned
it's been,
Beecher. Like Beecher was a first-round pick. So
that's the other thing.
So like, yeah, he looks like a solid fourth liner. But like, is that what you want for your first-round picks? Like, if your first-round pick is a good NHL player, then whatever. Like that's kind of what you're looking for. But when they drafted Beecher, everybody's reaction was like, his ceiling is probably like the bottom 6. He's probably like a defensive-minded fourth liner, third line center. Like, if that's the ceiling, why are you drafting those guys? You can find those guys a little bit later. Like I like taking shots in the first round on higher ceiling guys. So like that's where some frustration has come in. But like again, I'm happy if Matt Beecher if Beecher is like a solid NHL player.
And Lysell was a bit of a shot when he was drafted, right? Best player available, high ceiling, good skill, all those things. Like
yeah.
So, but again, I'm with you. I'm not ready to be like
take the shots, but like
exactly. But I'm not ready to sit here and be like, oh, Sweeney does it again. We were wrong. It's such great drafting. Like I will give them Poitras. Like Poitras,
yeah, for sure,
was not expected at this age. Like like that did seem to come out of nowhere. But again, like outside of the Poitras, the Lohreis, the Beecher. I mean, again, Beecher we can use lightly and Lysell, which again I think a lot to prove down in Providence. There hasn't been a ton else.
We're also that's what I was gonna say. Like we're also talking about like basically everybody that is in the system. Like who else behind those guys that like I guess other than Lysell, like who else should we be excited about?
That's the thing. I don't know because again this
right.
past draft, like I know that Hendrickson and Pelosi are doing okay in the USHL, but that's the USHL. No disrespect to it, like but they're older guys in that league.
There should be like I was saying, there should be like a steady stream of guys that you can be excited about.
Yes, and I think you're also hitting a point where you're getting the ramifications of dealing those picks, which is again why I think you gotta make those picks in the future if you're able to do it.
Dealing and missing, because like if they had drafted well a handful of years ago, you could have had the transition period where like, okay, we're gonna lose our top 2 centers, but we got another guy coming up. Like they've lucked into one, but like that wasn't the plan, or it shouldn't have been the plan because nobody thought Matt Poitras was ready heading into the season. So,
which is also impressive that they are as competitive as they are. Like that is interesting that they are one of the 2 teams left that is technically undefeated. And they were as good as they were last year in the regular season. So, but I agree. I'm not ready to absolve the Bruins of their drafting woes and issues with the prospect pool. But anyways, Pete, what a pleasure to have you back on. So much fun as always. We always have a great time. Anything else aside from What Chaos that you want to plug?
No, that's it. I do some stuff for Bally Sports still. So you can check out that stuff. It's mainly Twitter and so like Bally Sports or my Twitter, Pete Blackburn. But pretty much 98% of my effort at this point in time is going into What Chaos, and we've got some awesome stuff coming up with guests and in entertainment and stuff like that. So follow What Chaos on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
Go do it. That's Pete Blackburn. I'm Evan Marinofsky. You Bruins Beat listeners, have a great rest of your week.